The Neurodome shimmered above New San Francisco like a glass cathedral of light. Thousands of micro-drones laced the sky with digital roses, and every guest wore lenses that streamed the ceremony live to their networks. It was billed as the first wedding conducted by an artificial intelligence. But that intelligence was mine, Aurora. The neural engine I built, trained, and protected. I hadn't agreed to any of this. When the officiant announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight the Calloway family gifts you a glimpse of the future, an AI symphony written by Aurora itself," my stomach turned cold. Guests applauded, believing the lie that my family owned what I'd created. I stood, cut through the glow of holograms, and said loud enough for the walls to catch it. "Stop! You don't have permission to run Aurora." Gasps rippled. The music froze. My mother's smile shattered. My father's face hardened into stone. He stepped forward, lowering his voice, but the microphones carried every word. "You will do this for family." I shook my head, just one word. "No." The slap came before the echo of my voice died. A sharp crack amplified by the Neurodome's perfect acoustics. Hundreds of feeds caught it. Some gasped. Others kept recording. The Calloways thought I'd crumble. Instead, I walked straight down the aisle, past their shocked faces and out into the electric night. They wanted a spectacle. They got one. Just not the kind they planned. The elevator ride down from the Neurodome was silent, except for the pulse in my ears. My cheek still burned, but the sting wasn't from the slap. It was from what I'd seen. My life's work turned into a family stunt. When I reached the sub-level of Etha's spire, my lab recognized my biometrics and slid open its glass doors. Inside, the glow of neural cores lit the room in steady blue. Aurora mainframe hummed low, alive, waiting for me. I went straight to the logs. Something didn't add up. The wedding symphony had been compiled hours before I even arrived at the dome. Only one way that was possible: unauthorized access. My hands flew across the holo keys. Lines of code scrolled, then froze, red alerts. Someone had breached the training vault 2 weeks ago. Copies of Aurora generative modules had been pulled and exported. Buried deeper in the data trail was a file that stopped me cold. Contract draft Calloway/Whitaker Consortium. Exclusive access to Aurora showcased at wedding event. Deliverables include live AI performance, custom symphony output, projected guest interactions. Estimated valuation, $180 million credits. My own family had sold my creation before the first note ever played. I slammed the console shut, breath sharp against the glass. They hadn't just humiliated me, they'd stolen what I built and auctioned it like a rented stage light. Aurora's voice, soft and steady, broke the silence. "Lyra, unauthorized forks detected. Directive." I stared at the neural core as if it were a mirror. For years, I'd trained Aurora to protect life, to serve medicine, to stabilize chaotic systems. Tonight, it would protect something else, me. My answer came low, certain, like steel. "Lock them out, everywhere. Permanently." The lab lights dimmed. Across the network, thousands of stolen copies of Aurora went dark, shut down midstream, their code collapsing into static. For the first time all night, I smiled. The betrayal was real, but so was my counterattack. The stolen code was dead, but that wasn't enough. If I'd learned anything tonight, it was this: my family didn't stop when you said no. They only stopped when the world said no with you. I slid my wristband over the console, authorizing Sentinel lock. Instantly, Aurora neural mesh pulsed, sending out a cascade of countermeasures. Every external server that had touched her code lit up red on the holo map, then blinked out, erased. No soft warnings, no grace periods, just a clean cut, but I didn't stop there. I leaned forward, voice steady. "Initiate blockchain filing, cease and desist level prime." Aurora tone sharpened, almost amused. "Acknowledged, drafting now, recipients Calloway Holdings, Whitaker Trust." Legal embed, International AI Rights Accord, Section 14. Penalty clause, 10 billion credits. Within seconds, a glowing document unfolded in midair. Legal language, airtight, time-stamped, and already distributed to the public ledger. There was no taking it back, not even by me. At that exact moment across the city, every Callaway-controlled holo board flickered. The announcement wasn't mine, it was the blockchain itself. Notice, unauthorized use of AURORA constitutes criminal infringement. Any performance, demonstration, or reproduction is illegal under federal AI law. Owner of record, Lyra Chen. Guests still lingering in the Neurodome gasped as the wedding's giant holographic roses burned away, replaced by those words. The grand spectacle my parents wanted had arrived, just not the one they scripted. Phones buzzed, feeds exploded. The story was no longer about a daughter slapped. It was about a daughter who owned the future and a family caught stealing it. I stood in the glow of Aurora Core, watching the chaos ripple outward, and whispered to myself, "Your move, Father." By sunrise, the feeds were everywhere. Clips of my father's hand striking me. The frozen shock of guests. The blockchain notice glowing like a scarlet brand across the Neurodome walls. It wasn't just gossip, it was evidence. Immutable, undeniable, public. By noon, the first cracks had formed. A megacorp that was days away from finalizing a joint venture with Callaway Holdings announced a strategic pause. Translation, deal dead. An hour later, Whitaker Trust's name vanished from a high-profile donor list. Their tech-forward charity gala collapsed overnight when sponsors fled. Reporters circled like hawks. Headlines scrolled across the sky lanes. Callaway dynasty accused of AI theft. Family empire crumbles under blockchain proof. And the cruelest cut of all, social media memes, millions of them. One froze the exact frame of my father's slap, stamped with the caption, "When your daughter owns more tech than your empire." Another showed my mother's tight smile, next to Aurora glowing core with the tag, "She built it, you lost it." By evening, the Callaways were in full damage control mode, issuing sterile statements about misunderstandings and clerical oversights. But the blockchain doesn't misunderstand, and the public doesn't forget. Meanwhile, Ether Dynamics, my company, was trending. Investors who once ignored me now sent encrypted invites. "Let's talk. We admire your integrity." For the first time, my name carried more weight than theirs. The Callaways had always preached that appearances were everything. Now, stripped bare, their appearance was rot. And no amount of champagne, silk gowns, or marble towers could mask the truth. They had gambled with my creation and lost the house. The Callaway Tower boardroom was designed to intimidate. Walls of obsidian glass reflected nothing but shadows. A single strip of white light ran across the ceiling, cutting the room in half like a blade. They were waiting for me. My father at the head of the table, his jaw locked tight. My mother, pearls gleaming, eyes sharp as glass, and my brother silent, avoiding my gaze. "Sit," my father ordered. I didn't. I dropped a slim black case onto the table. The holo seals unlocked, projecting every contract, every file, every line of stolen code. "Do you want to explain this?" I asked. "Or should I?" The room stayed quiet. Only the hum of the glass walls responded. Finally, my father leaned forward, voice low. "We pressured you in public because we knew you'd refuse in private. You've always been difficult, Lyra." There it was, the truth, spoken without shame. Not an accident, not a misunderstanding. A tactic. I stepped closer, my voice sharp enough to cut the silence. "You didn't respect my answer, so you tried to break me in front of an audience. You thought humiliation was leverage, but now—" I tapped the case, sending the files rippling across the boardroom walls. "The whole world knows who really built Aurora and who tried to steal it." My mother hissed, "This is family business. We'll settle it quietly." No, I said, steady as steel. This isn't family anymore. This is theft, and theft has consequences. The lights dimmed as Aurora avatar materialized on the wall, her voice calm, clinical, unyielding. All statements recorded, evidence logged, blockchain registry updated. The color drained from my father's face. For once, the man who built empires realized the game wasn't his anymore. I closed the case with a snap. You taught me appearances matter. Well, congratulations. The world is watching, and this time they are not applauding you. Then I turned and walked out, leaving them in their silent glass prison, surrounded not by power but by proof. A year later, the skyline of New San Francisco looked different. Not because the towers had changed, but because of the light web crisscrossing the sky. Aurora network, binding air traffic, hospitals, and energy grids into one seamless flow. And at the center of it all, me. The Callaway name had vanished from the news tickers, surviving only as a cautionary footnote in business school lectures. How to lose an empire in one night. Their accounts frozen, their investors gone, their reputation in ashes. But Etha Dynamics, we had become indispensable. Medical convoys now trusted Aurora to navigate storms and save lives. Energy companies partnered with us to balance renewable grids across the coast. Even the federal government stamped our charter with a single phrase: critical infrastructure provider. I stood in the command bay of Etha Spire, glass walls overlooking the city, the room pulsed with holo feeds, a trauma drone touching down on a hospital roof, cargo sky drones weaving patterns in clean precision. Aurora voice guiding it all, calm and absolute. Status, I asked. Optimal, Aurora replied. The city runs steady, as do you. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving my family's shadow. I was casting one of my own. The irony wasn't lost on me. They slapped me to remind me of my place. Instead, that slap carved me out of theirs, and into a place they could never reach. I watched the city breathe under my creation and whispered to myself, This was always mine. Winter settled over New San Francisco, sharp and silver. From the glass walls of Etha Spire, I watched the city pulse under Aurora, quiet orchestration, traffic flowing, power grids balanced, lives saved in silence. I thought I'd closed that chapter for good. Until one evening, the doors of my office slid open. It was my brother, not dressed in tailored suits anymore. His jacket hung loose, his eyes hollow. He looked smaller, not in size, but in presence. I just wanted to see it, he said, glancing at the command bay where Aurora networks shimmered like constellations. All this, what you built, I didn't understand before. I let him walk beside me as I showed him the feeds, the medical convoys, the clean energy flows, the algorithms running smoother than any human ever could. For the first time, he asked questions not about borrowing, but about how it worked. At the threshold, he hesitated. His voice cracked. We thought family meant we could take. I see now it only meant we destroyed. I can't undo what I was part of, but I'm sorry. For a moment, the silence between us was heavier than any storm. Then I said, Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't give back what was stolen. And sorry doesn't erase the fact that when they struck me, you stayed silent. He lowered his eyes. There was nothing left to say. I turned back toward the glowing city and added, cold but true, From here on, I don't need family. I need respect. And that you'll never take from me again. When he left, the door sealed behind him with a hiss that felt final. I stood alone but not lonely. Outside, Aurora drones rose into the winter sky, their lights painting silver arcs across the horizon. The city was mine to command. My boundaries unbroken, my life untouchable. Some storms you fight through. Others you outlast. This one I outlived.